Hey there, couples. We're in week number 2 of our Marriage Basics series. And Tracy, this might be the hardest of all 3 of these pillars that we're talking about in this series.
Yep, today we're going to focus on trust. And if you've been in a marriage where trust has been broken, you know how hard it can be, how it can really wreak havoc in the relationship, just the personal pain that causes in your life. But we're going to talk today about how, number one, just to continue to earn trust in your relationship, but even if it's been broken for some reason, how to get it back.
So remember, in our Marriage Basics series, we're talking about these 3 pillars of a healthy marriage: love, trust, and communication. So let's dig in on earning trust. And I want to start with a definition before we talk about the principle. Here's the definition. Trust is relying on the integrity or ability of another person. So trust is all about the trustworthiness of another person, and that leads to our principle, and it's just real simple. Trust is earned. It's not freely given.
Yeah, I want to just highlight just one more time in that definition. A lot of people miss this about trust, that trust is about relying on somebody else's strength and ability. It's what they're showing you is why you would give trust. And I think a lot of people think trust is a personal issue, that if I have trust issues with my spouse, then it must be because I'm not a trusting person. But the essence of what trust is all about is it's what the other person brings to the table, and then we give trust as we see trustworthiness. So that means that in marriage, our job every single day is to earn trust, to be trustworthy, to show our spouse that they can trust us.
And when you think about it, God himself is trustworthy. Deuteronomy 7:9 says, "Understand, therefore, that the Lord your God is indeed God. He is the faithful God who keeps his covenant for 1,000 generations and lavishes his unfailing love on those who love him and obey his commandments." So even God doesn't ask us to blindly trust him. He earns our trust because he's faithful, because he's trustworthy. So we're going to talk about 3 truths about trust as you try to earn it in your own relationship. And here's the first one. Building trust takes time.
Yeah, hopefully in your marriage, on day 1, you had enough trust to want to marry one another. But hopefully if you're on year 5 or year 20, you've learned to trust each other even more because you've had time to build it up. It's kind of like a bank account of trust that every time that you keep your word, every time that you respond with the consistent, healthy response, those are all ways that you're putting that deposit of trust in the bank account with your spouse so that they can respond with trust to you. So the first thing is trust takes time. And hopefully that means that over the span of your marriage, you have more and more trust, not less and less.
And secondly, trustworthiness can be measured. And this is especially important for those of you out there in a relationship where you're trying to earn trust back.
Yeah, this is the whole thing that speaks to why trust is earned, is that it can be measured. So if you've had some broken trust in your marriage, you should be able to say to your spouse, okay, here's how you broke my trust. And here's some things that you could do to start earning it back. If I see these behaviors, then I'll know that you're really working to earn my trust. You're trying to be trustworthy. So it's measurable. So we always say to couples who come in with some kind of a trust issue, if the spouse that offended, who broke the trust, if they can't show examples of things that they've done differently, then our question to them is, well, then why should your spouse respond with trust if you haven't shown them anything or any change in your behavior? So when you're talking about trust in your marriage, it should always be thought of in terms of, if you're not trusting me enough, then what do I need to do to show you that I'm trustworthy? How can I show you in a measurable way?
Because ultimately, trust is reactive. It's not proactive. If you're going to trust your spouse more, it is going to be in reaction to their trustworthiness that they're growing in over time.
Yeah, maybe some of you guys have lived that experience where you've given trust away to someone that hadn't earned it, that you made the mistake of extending trust and you shouldn't have done that. Maybe that's even happened in your very own marriage, but you should be reacting to trustworthiness. That's what you need to build in your relationship. That second pillar of why trust is so important is that both of you, in a healthy marriage, both spouses understand that every word that we speak, every action we take is either putting a deposit in that trust account or we're making a withdrawal because we've done something that broke trust. And the goal here is that you want your spouse to react to you with trust because you're earning their trust every day.
So those are the three truths about trust. But before we move on from this lesson, I think it's really important to talk about how forgiveness is different. Trust, it turns out, is reactive, but forgiveness, according to the Bible, is proactive. That means that extending forgiveness opens the door to restoring broken trust. So if you're working through some trust issues in your marriage, then even the offended spouse is probably going to have to extend some forgiveness here at the beginning as you start working toward restoration in your marriage. After all, Paul said in Colossians 3, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others.
Yeah, and this is really important to recognize the difference because a lot of people put forgiveness and trust together. That if I forgive someone, that means that then I have to trust them. And that's not the case because of the essence of what both of them mean. Remember, trust is something that's reactionary. We give trust as someone earns it. But clearly in the Bible, and as Jesus is our example, forgiveness is something different. Forgiveness is a gift. Forgiveness is the kind of the engine that gets trust going again. Forgiveness is something that if your spouse has betrayed you in some way, that your gift of forgiveness does not mean that you've just forgotten everything that's happened. It doesn't mean that now you just fully trust them and they're just totally off the hook. What it does mean is you're giving them room to start earning your trust back. That forgiveness is a gift that without it, it's really hard to start earning trust because you can't just keep holding an offense over someone's head. So remember the difference. Trust is something that you react as you see. But forgiveness is something that you give. It's a proactive gift that you give away.
So that's the second pillar of a healthy marriage. Trust is earned. It's not freely given. I use those questions below to talk about this, and then we'll see you in lesson 3.